right, so welcome everybody. Thanks Chase, Sean, and Andy for putting on the event. Real quick, just to get a read of the room, I don't get super detailed with the planning of any of these talks that I do, so I like to present information that's more specific to the people that are here. So raise your hand if you don't have a Shopify site and it's something that you're planning on doing in the near future. Okay, raise your hand if you have a Shopify site and you feel like you're still early into things and you need to discover a way to make profitable revenue. Okay, now raise your hand if you have a kick-ass Shopify site and you just want to make more money and get flush. Okay, cool. I gotta talk closer here. Oh, holy shit. My voice is a little more deep all of a sudden. All right, cool. So who here knows what remarketing is? Raise your hand if you've ever heard the word. Okay, perfect. So we'll start off with a definition. Remarketing at its highest level is just an effort to nurture leads with anyone that you've had a touch point with in the past. This is especially important with anyone who is in retail or e-commerce because the vast majority of the time, casting impressions with people that you've already had a touch point with are cheaper, and you'll have a higher conversion rate on converting those people. Think about it the same way that you would with any kind of transactional value or things that you do in your life. If you ultimately know of a brand and you can trust what they're doing in any way, shape, or form without really diving into their value propositions, you're gonna have a lower barrier of entry to actually converting on anything that they're doing. So if you've seen a brand several times, if you've visited their site, if you're starting to learn more and dive into a deeper relationship with them, ultimately that's going to be better. And for a lot of retailers, the reason this is good is because you can take off a portion of your overall marketing budget and you can put it into almost a cycle where you can continually increase the value of your current sales. The reason that this is so important for people like myself who run a business that's hedged on analytic data behind sales is because if you can increase the lifetime value of any customer, and if you can increase the conversion rate on people who are coming to your site, you can invest more money on marketing. That is a very simple formula that everybody in this room should know. Lifetime value times conversion rate times your profit margin will allow you to figure out how much you can spend per person that you drive to your site. So by increasing those two things, which we just found out actually increase when you're doing remarketing, you can spend more money on those people and generating more visibility. So the types of digital marketing that most people are familiar with are remarketing to website visitors, remarketing to social followers, and then remarketing to their CRM lists or email lists. So if you are going after people who have already visited your site, if you're going after people that like you on Facebook, there's a pretty good chance that those people will convert at a higher rate. So you want to cast visibility to them. There's two ways to do it. It's the organic, it's the paid way. We always say that the exciting, scalable way to do it is through the paid way, but you should know based on your organic commitments that you're making to any group of people, you're going to have a better time converting those who already follow you. And it's common sense to us because we know that they've already expressed some interest in your brand and some affinity to what you're doing. So it makes complete sense to go after them. So to come up with a example of why and how this might work, raise your hand if you know what Roll Bicycle Stores is here in town. Wonderful. So Roll is a bicycle shop here in town that if you have a busted tire or if you have an issue with support and you need to go, you can go and you can have a kick-ass time getting your bike worked on. Now, that is a lead magnet where if you have a really good experience, you might go there for other services and other products. That right there is a way to do remarketing that's actually increasing their lifetime value in a really meaningful way on something that might be a very small engagement in the first place. What they're doing is using an in-person interaction to drive better awareness of their brand, and chances are those people are then going to connect with you digitally or through other areas. We're speaking specifically about e-commerce today, but we're also talking about several channels. So whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or anywhere else, it's imperatively important that you're doing a good job of building your audience and tracking people that you've already had a touch point with because of everything that I've set up to this point. It's going to be cheaper to go after them, and they're going to convert at a higher rate. So the problem with, not the problem, one of the issues or the unoptimal ways to approach remarketing is that it's so often done in a very general manner. There are two major platforms that are utilized that will do remarketing for you. AdRoll and Criteo are the two that are most widely used at enterprise organizations. And then if you're gonna manage your own remarketing, the two platforms that I would like to speak to today, because it's the vast majority of what people are using for remarketing, are Google AdWords and Facebook ads, which includes both placements on Instagram and Facebook. So when we get now into the more tactical recommendations for remarketing, I'm going to be speaking specifically to those two platforms. So the traditional marketing methodology is built on this idea that you have to cast an initial marketing plan to get people into your funnel to then run another marketing campaign to them. The unfortunate part about this is that it costs a lot of money. If any of you have young e-commerce brands and you don't have a lot of working capital to go out and generate a lot of these brand impressions, the problem is that you're putting up risk capital instead of working capital to create that first marketing group in order to cast a second set of impressions to. It's hard to make that investment and to move into that direction if you're really unsure of how you're gonna build that customer journey and how you're gonna convert people. The other part of it is that we as internet users are getting savvier about not getting tracked. I'm sure everyone in this room has heard something about Facebook and data leaks lately. And so people are installing privacy and cookie cleaners onto their browser. So if ultimately you're just going after someone and hoping that if they visited your website and they have a tracking pixel in their browser, and they're gonna come back in 7, 30, 90 days after that, if at any point they clean that data out, you're not gonna have access to that person if it's 100% cookie-based. Now, Facebook, and we don't know if this is gonna change, is a little bit more of an intimate relationship with their browser and your consumer habits. They will register those cookies to your unique ID. So if you have an email address and a Facebook account and you go out and you do a lot of things online, when you eventually come back, they're gonna register that into your browser regardless of whether you wipe your browser clean or not. So that means if you looked at a new pair of shoes that you really liked, that you were thinking about purchase and cart abandon, if you visit Facebook before you clean out all your cookies, Facebook knows that you looked at that pair of shoes. And that's why they're so damn good at putting that in front of you for the next week of your life. Google, on the other hand, is 100% cookie-based. They're getting into the point where they're doing cross-device and user-based ID remarketing. It's honestly kind of creepy and kind of scary when you think about the amount of data that's out there and how they're utilizing it. But the fact that data leaks are happening and things like this, there's a certain amount of control that's going to happen over that industry. So now that you know about what remarketing is and just generally how people go at it, I'm going to try to give you some tactical recommendations on how to do it better. So number one is segment your remarketing lists and your retargeting lists. So the general or the default way of doing remarketing and retargeting through Facebook or AdWords is going to be going after all of your visitors over the last 30 days. And as you could all imagine, the consumer habits of someone who was just on your website in the last 24 hours is going to be different than someone who's been on your website 28 days ago. Because of that, you should audit what your type of business is and how long of a time you have before someone's ultimately going to make a purchasing decision. If you're selling a $20 pair of shoes and someone's looking for a very specific type of pair of shoes that you're selling, it makes sense to aggressively go after someone who might have added those shoes to their cart and then left. If you're selling a $1,000 piece of furniture, it might be harder to get over that hump of actually making that purchase. So going after someone aggressively for just 24 hours after that might not be the best case scenario for you. So by creating segmentation of your lists, creating a 7-day list, creating a 30-day list, creating a 90-day list, you're able to create slices of people based on the time since they visited your website or took an action on your website that you're ultimately able to go after. The way this is traditionally done on the back end of both Facebook and AdWords is based on URLs. So when you start the checkout process on Shopify, you'll notice that the word checkouts shows up in your URL. And when you hit a confirmation page, you'll notice what the confirmation pages are. Since the URL changes in a standard way and just has a wildcard as far as the user ID or order IDs after that, you can take those segments and then build your remarketing lists off of that. So if you want to go after people who visited your cart, but exclude people who went through the purchase process, you're actually identifying cart abandoners. And those are the people you should be going after aggressively, because it's someone who got almost to the point of buying something from you, but didn't quite get over the hump. These are the ways that we use conditional rules on remarketing lists in order to get to some really deep insights on how long does it take to bring someone back to our website to actually convert, and how do we move forward. This is the most important thing that we do when we're setting up a remarketing campaign in the first place for anyone, because it's uber important for us to understand where they can make the most investments to get the most return on their ad dollars. Number 2 is modeling new audiences. The really creepy algorithms that I just told you about on Google and Facebook, they also do a really, really good job of identifying new leads based on consumer habits. Imagine if you had a library of all of your customers and then knew how those customers that you currently have on your website relate to everybody who's out there who might be interested in buying your product. So the algorithms on Facebook, the algorithms on Google will do that for you. They've got a huge database of information that's out there that knows exactly what kind of people fit the personas and fit the consumer habits of people who have historically purchased from your company. So it's really important on Facebook to utilize something called lookalike audiences. After you've created a custom audience on the back of Facebook, you can create a lookalike audience to take your, say, 5,000 or 10,000 person list that you have already created and generate 1 million to 19 million leads from that. You can also do the same thing on Google through Google Assisted Targeting. You could take any of your remarketing lists, check a box for Google Assisted Targeting, and then have your display network ads go out to a much greater group of people. Number 3 is get your best customers first. So as I alluded to at the beginning about doing that first marketing campaign to drive all the remarketing efforts that you're doing later, if you're not doing a targeted job up front with running that initial marketing campaign, you're gonna get bad leads. And if you're modeling new leads from bad customer data, and if you're not taking the time to really think through who your core customer is the first time that you do marketing, your lead lists are gonna be shitty. And that's the last thing that you wanna do. You wanna make sure that you're getting good data for not just the modeling to happen, but to do your remarketing and retargeting so that you're not wasting money and overspending. So when you get to the point of launching a new brand, launching new products, or driving traffic, make sure to be more refined with your targeting, even if it means lower amounts of audience now, so that you can ultimately be more profitable. Like I said earlier, it's always better to work with working capital rather than risk capital on any of these initiatives. So those are some tips tactically on how you can do a better job with remarketing. I think we're good.